Welcome back to the Anfield Exchange, and today we're talking about transfers again. And we've already done so much in this window, but I feel like there's still so far to go in terms of getting our squad up to date with what we need for the start of the season. So there's a lot of moving parts coming into play, and it seems like the wheels are in motion now. First off, Darwin Núñez joining Al Ahly in Saudi. I'm not sure about the move for him. I think it's probably the best thing for Liverpool. I would have liked to have kept him as a backup striker, especially if we don't bring Isak in. But I do think this move signifies that Alexander Isak will be joining Liverpool. And I'm going to go into that in this video. There's a few moving parts into this, which ultimately lead to Isak joining Liverpool. So obviously Núñez has left. I think he's come in for some unfair criticism, if I will. There's a lot of people on social media that are saying he's the worst signing that Liverpool have ever made. Look, what I will say is he's not been a roaring success, but he's far from the worst signing that Liverpool have ever made. A lot of these people, if they believe that, that's fine, but they obviously haven't really, they're not old enough to remember a lot of the signings that we have made. You look at El Hadji Diouf, he was one of them. There was a few of them. I mean, even Andy Carroll, for what we spent on him, I'd say Andy Carroll was the worst one. So yeah, by far the worst one. And I think it was a little bit unfair really, because when he did join the club, he was compared to Erling Haaland from the offset, and there was this campaign in the media that these two were similar players, and it's so far from the truth. And I think ultimately he's not been able to handle the pressure of, one, the price tag, and two, the pressure that the media have put on him since he joined the club. What I will say, so the way this is going to impact the Alexander Isak deal, I think Liverpool have made it clear that they won't be held to ransom for Alexander Isak. I don't think Liverpool will go out and spend 150 million on Alexander Isak, despite that being Newcastle's asking price. And there's a few reasons for that. I think where we're at now with everything that's happened, and obviously we've brought Ekitike in, who was Newcastle's target. They're still struggling for the Wissa deal to get over the line. Sesko's just agreed to join Man United. So it's not looking good for Newcastle. They missed out on João Pedro as well, and a few others. So look, they look like they're turning their attentions to Nicholas Jackson, but it all looks a little bit desperate now. What I will say is the way things have panned out, I think it's in Newcastle's interests to sell Alexander Isak now, because if they don't sell him, one, they won't bring any funds in to help with PSR and to help them strengthen the squad, which I think is essential for Newcastle at this moment in time. And two, again, if they don't sell him, Alexander Isak has basically told Newcastle he's not going to play for the club again. So you're just holding on to an asset that has no value to you if you're going to keep him, and his value is just going to decrease over time. If it's not now, it could potentially be January. Again, he's 6 months down on his contract. Six months have expired from where we are now, and his value is just going to go down. So I think now is the time for Newcastle to sell him, and I think Liverpool have put him into a tricky situation, if I'm honest. And I think it's genius from Richard Hughes as well. We're seeing links to Liverpool and Bradley Barcola now. And what I will say is, I don't think there's any intentions for us to sign Bradley Barcola. I don't believe that's an option. He doesn't want to leave PSG. PSG don't want to sell him. I think they're asking for around 87 million, and they're in talks with him to renew his contract. So I think it's a bit of a smoke screen, is the Barcola news. And I think what that does to Newcastle is, it says to Newcastle, right, if you're not going to sell us Isak for what we value Isak, and you're going to be valuing him at 150 million, we're willing to pay 120. If you're not going to accept that, we're going to look elsewhere. And I think what this Barcola talk is, I think that's exactly that. Apparently, Liverpool have approached Barcola twice over the last 6 months, once in January and once last week, and both of those approaches have been rebuffed, if we believe what we see on social media. I think it's all about PR, and it's all to give the impression that, not the impression, but Liverpool are not desperate for Alexander Isak now. Yes, we would love to have him at the club, but if we don't get Alexander Isak, we will turn our attentions to a winger. I think it's clear we need another attacker in the squad because we are quite light in that position. But if it's not going to be Alexander Isak, it'll be someone else. So Newcastle have this opportunity where, right, we're willing to give you £120 million. If you're not going to accept that, we'll bring someone else in and we'll be completely fine. But you're going to be in a situation where you haven't got the money to bring in a centre-back, a midfielder, and another attacker. And you're going to have a player that doesn't want to play for you and he's refusing to play for you. Not only that, in a year's time, his value is going to decrease and we'll come in next year with a bid for 70 million. And if you don't accept it then, he's 26, 27 next year. Where is he going to go? Because everybody's got the strikers lined up now. Everybody's already brought the strikers in. The only options are Liverpool and Saudi. And Alexander Isak doesn't want to go and play Saudi. He wants to play for Liverpool. So it's a bit of a tricky situation that Newcastle are in. For me personally, I think we just need to accept the £120 million bid when that arrives. We're expecting that imminently. And then just go and spend that money, strengthen your squad. You're not going to bring anyone in to the standard of Isak, but they're doing the right things in terms of looking at your Sescos, looking at your João Pedros. You've got players there who are very good, not Isak's level, but it allows you to have money left over and go and spend that money on other positions. They're dying out for a centre-back. We missed out on James Trafford. They've just sold Dubravka to Burnley. So we need a goalkeeper as well. And probably a little bit more depth in midfield. I think Joe Willock's just got a long-term injury as well. So that sort of leaves them light in midfield as well to challenge on both fronts of qualifying for the Champions League and in the Champions League campaign this year. But yeah, like I say, I think Liverpool are holding all the cards at the minute, and Newcastle really have to have a think about it and get this situation resolved in the next, I would say, the next week, at the latest 2 weeks, because Liverpool have other targets in mind. Liverpool still need to bring in, if we can't get Isak, another attacker. We're looking at centre-backs. I would like to see 2 come in, but I think we're probably only going to bring the 1 in this summer. And Liverpool need to get that. These deals, they can take time. And if we're not going to go into the last week of a transfer window still looking at Isak and not having any business done for other positions that we need. So, yeah, I think there's probably going to be a deadline on the Isak deal in Liverpool's minds. I think Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards will sit down and think, right, if the deal's not done in the next week or so, or if there's been no progress, then we're going to switch our attentions elsewhere. We're going to get what we need to get, and we'll be happy with that squad. We have just spent, I think it works out around €90 million, including add-ons for Ekitike. So we have a striker in the ranks already, and what we'll probably do then is bring in somebody around the £30 million mark, maybe a Mateta, someone like that who can play second fiddle to Ekitike. So yeah, it's up to Newcastle at the minute whether they're going to accept the valuation that Liverpool have put on Alexander Isak. I do think that the sale of Darwin Núñez probably means that Liverpool have a plan. And are confident that they'll get Alexander Isak, because I don't see a world where they would let Darwin Núñez go and not have 2 strikers in the ranks. We've got Cody Gakpo on the left, we've got Mo Salah on the right. Mo Salah's in AFCON this year. The backup to Gakpo will be 16-year-old Rio Ngamoa. I think he's good enough, but I think you need someone else in that position. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mo Salah as well, because when he goes to AFCON, at the minute, we haven't really got anyone to play there. We've got Ben Doak, who is a very good player. He's got potential, but he's not ready to come in and take Salah's spot when he goes to AFCON. So there is a lot of work for Liverpool to do. We won't be bogged down by this Isak deal. It's probably gone on long enough now, and they'll want to get a resolution on this very, very quickly. But yeah, the sort of, to break down this video, the BARCOLA stuff, it's all PR. It's all PR. Liverpool will not get Bradley BARCOLA. What I would say is, could there potentially be something in the Tyler Morton to Lyon transfer? They picked up Tyler Morton for around 15 million. Liverpool have been linked with Malik Fofana. I wouldn't be completely against that. He's a young midfielder. He'd probably be happy to play second fiddle to Gakpo for a year or two, and then compete with Gakpo, and it just gives you that extra depth in the midfield. So yeah, potentially there might be something to do there with the Tyler Morton deal going through now. But yeah, there's definitely going to be more signings for Liverpool. The MARC GUEHI stuff has all gone very, very quiet, which is interesting. Usually when these deals go quiet, it usually means it's being worked on in the background and there's things happening in the background. I would imagine it's at that point now. There is a spanner that's just been thrown into the works with Levi Colwill just getting injured for Chelsea. He could potentially end up going down that route. I'm sure Chelsea would be interested and would be willing to put the money up to bring him into the club. He will be staying in London, so it's closer to him. That deal for me personally would make sense, and I think Chelsea might be the biggest stumbling block now to getting MARC GUEHI. I think Liverpool potentially would have looked at bringing in a young centre-back, and we've been linked with that Leone from Parma. I don't know too much about him, but I think Liverpool were looking to go down the route of bringing a young centre-back just to add numbers, and then potentially let MARC GUEHI's contract run down next year, pick him up on a free transfer, especially if Konate was to leave for Real Madrid, because obviously he's not signed that renewal yet, that contract renewal. So yeah, that could throw a spanner in the works with a MARC GUEHI deal. That's a real risk now that Chelsea might come in and snap that up. If that does happen, it may force Liverpool's hand. I think if Liverpool are willing to pay the 40-50 million to get him into the club, which I think, on paper, when someone's got a year left on the contract, I think it's an expensive deal. But I think you got to look at MARC GUEHI. He's captain of Crystal Palace. He's just won the cup with Crystal Palace. They're in Europe. He's 24. He's English. I don't see any issues with bringing MARC GUEHI in for 50 million. And if I'm in the position of Richard Hughes, I'm thinking, let's get this deal done. Let's secure this deal, get the depth that we need, and then we can put all of our focus on the attack and see where we land with Isak and what we're potentially going to do if that deal doesn't happen. But yeah, basically, the ball is in Newcastle's court now. Liverpool, I very much doubt Liverpool will go to a 150. It doesn't make sense, because as time keeps going on and we see these reports that Alexander Isak is now been banned from training, and he didn't attend the barbecue with the families, and he's having to go into the training ground on his own after hours and train by himself. I mean, it all leads to the fact that Alexander Isak is leaving the club. You're not going to sit there and keep him at the club when he's not going to play football for you, when you can take 120 million for him. It just doesn't make sense. So I do think the deal will get done around 120 million. I think the delay potentially is the fact that Newcastle is struggling in the transfer market to bring strikers in. Obviously, Sesko's agreed to go to Man United now. I think Nicholas Jackson is probably the one. I think he's already said that he would be happy to make the move to Newcastle. I actually don't think Nicholas Jackson's a bad signing. I actually quite like Nicholas Jackson. I think he struggled when he first came into the Premier League, but I thought he had a good campaign last season. Certainly up until he got injured. He struggled to get up to speed a little bit after the injury, but I actually think he's a good player and he would be a good signing. Whether Chelsea would, I see reports. I've seen some reports that he's available for around 100 million. I've seen some that he's around available for around 60 million. So I think for the 60 million mark, that's a fair price. I don't think anyone's going to go near 100 million for Nicholas Jackson. But yeah, I think Newcastle have really fumbled this situation. When Liverpool made the approach, I'm sure a conversation would have been had with Newcastle regarding Hugo Ekitike, because he was the number one target. And I'm sure Liverpool would have said, look, sell us Alexander Isak, we'll give you 120 million. We'll give you a clear run at Hugo Ekitike. And I think at that point, Newcastle obviously didn't want to sell Isak, but Isak hadn't had any conversations with Newcastle about him not playing for the club and him not going on the tour and whatnot. So I think hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think if Newcastle could go back, I think they would. And yeah, they would definitely take the 120. Looking back at things now with the situation that we're in. But it's going to be a struggle next year for Newcastle if we don't get this situation resolved. I think Liverpool will be fine, even if Isak doesn't come in. We've got Hugo Ekitike. We're going to bring in another attacker. And potentially, we've still got Harvey Elliott. Harvey Elliott may potentially still stay at Liverpool. I think I was at the game against the games against Bilbao, and it did look like Harvey Elliott knew that he was not going to be playing for Liverpool next year. But I think if you can't bring in your targets that you want, why not keep players like Harvey Elliott, because he is a good player, and yeah, it would make sense to keep him at Liverpool. He can play out on the right, deputise for Salah when Salah needs a rest. He can play the number 10 role, and yeah, I think you've got Florian Wirtz, who potentially could play that false 9. You've got Jadon Dan's a young lad that can potentially come in and do a job. You've got Szoboszlai, who can play deeper. So there is room for Elliott to come into the squad and help out with the numbers when we need him. I don't think he'd play much football, but I think he'd certainly play the cup games and potentially any dead rubbers in the Champions League. But it all depends on what Harvey Elliott wants. Does he want to stick around at Liverpool, his boyhood club and the club that he supports, or does he want to go out and play consistent first team football now? It's probably not fair to keep Elliott here, because I think we all know he's not going to get the game time he wants. But it can be hard sometimes. It can be hard if you support a club to walk away from that club when you're essentially living your childhood dream. But yeah, lot of work still going on in the transfer window. There's still going to be a few shops yet. There's going to be a few signings. Expect at least one more attacker, possibly 2, and expect again at least one more centre back, possibly 2. So yeah, a lot of work still to be done. Let me know in the comments. Let me know who you would like. Do you think there's a lot of talk, and Jamie Carragher's come out and said he doesn't want to spend 150 million on Alexander Isak. Where do you guys stand on it? Because for me, you've got the opportunity to bring in a top striker, and yes, he's not the usual profile. He's a little bit older than what Liverpool look for, and obviously the valuation, it's not ideal coming at a time when we've already spent 116 million on Florian Wirtz and then another 90 million on Hugo Ekitike, as well as obviously Kerkez and Frimpong. But I think Liverpool have made a note of this over the last transfer windows and said that if the opportunity arises, we'll be there. And I think this is one of those, I hate the word, but opportunistic signings. Alexander Isak is top 2 best strikers in the Premier League. I would argue top 2, top 3 best strikers in the world as well, personally. I think he's that good. So for me, just get the deal done. Spend what you need to spend. And look, Liverpool are going to spend more money in this window. We're probably going to bring more money in as well. But with the team we've got and the age profiles that they all are, Liverpool are probably not going to spend for the next 2-3 windows. And if they are, it's not going to be as excessive as what we're spending right now. So, look, we're here. We're champions. We're acting like champions. Let's go out there. Let's get what we actually want. Don't worry about the finances. Bring in the players you want and get your team playing, and you'll be fine for the next 4 or 5 years, barring anybody leaving the club. So yeah, that's my view on it. Just spend the money and you'll recoup it in successes. I genuinely believe that. I think you bring Isak in and a couple of centre backs, I think Liverpool will be challenging on all fronts next year. I don't think that Liverpool are just going for domestic dominance anymore. I think Liverpool are going for European dominance. I think Liverpool they've got that bee in the bonnet now, where we're the more successful team in England. Let's go on. Let's try and catch Real Madrid. and win all them Champions Leagues and become the most successful team in the world. And I think that's completely doable with the way the club's ran. And we're doing exactly the things we should be doing to get to that point. But yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.